Yeah, I love what I do. I love the television business. I love creating. I first started out as a camera operator, so I love being able to, uh, you know, you have to have a little bit of an ego to do this. So I love being able to get a replay and fight to have the best shot and have my shot be used the most. So whatever I needed to do to get the best shot, whether take the camera off my shoulder, shoot from my knee, or put the camera above my head, I would do whatever it would take because I loved what I do. I loved seeing my stuff on the air, and I loved having my family, my kids see, me at the Super Bowl with my shots on the air. And with our businesses now, I love being able to walk away from helping produce a live event or a live stream and having the clients say, we're so glad we used you guys because that was the best event we ever did. Or, that's what drives us.
Heroes are an inspiring group of people. Every one of them, from the larger-than-life comic book heroes you see on the big silver screen, to everyday heroes that let us live the privileged lives we do. Every hero has a story to tell. From the doctor saving lives at your local hospital, to the war veteran down the street who risked his life for our freedom, to the police officers and the firefighters who risked their safety to ensure ours. Every hero is special and every story worth telling. But there is one class of heroes that I think is often ignored. The entrepreneur, the creator, the producer. The ones who look at the problems in this world and think to themselves, you know what? I can fix that. I can help people. I can make a difference. Then they go out and do exactly that by creating a new product or introducing a new service. Some go on to change the world. Others make a world of difference to their customers. Welcome to The Hero Show. Join us as we pull back the masks on the world's finest heropreneurs and learn the secrets to their powers, their success, and their influence, so you can use those secrets to attract more sales, make more money, and experience more freedom in your business. I'm your host, Richard Matthews, and we are on in 3, 2, 1.
Hello and welcome back to The Hero Show. My name is Richard Matthews, and today I have live on the line Howie Zales. How are you there?
Hey, Richard, nice to see you.
Awesome, glad to have you here. I know we were talking before we got on, and you're coming in from New York. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
Have you started to get to the warm weather there yet?
It's just we had a really 95-degree weather weekend last weekend, then it kind of dipped down. We're hoping for a stable, smooth 80-degree weather weekend this Memorial Day.
I mentioned before we got on, we've been traveling up the national parks here along the 15 freeway. So like, Zion, Bryce, and whatever else the other ones are. But we have, for whatever reason, we were like a week ahead of all the good weather. So it was like we were in Zion and it was cold until the last day. Then it was warm and sunny. And then that day we left up to Bryce where it was snowing, and then it snowed all week until the last day when it was sunny and warm. And then we went up to Yellowstone where it was snowy all week. And then in the last day it was sunny and warm. We came up to Glacier. So anyways, the last 4 weeks have all been cold because we misplanned our spring trip like 1 week. We were 1 week ahead of the good weather. So anyways, what I want to dive into before we get too far into this is just a brief introduction of who you are, and then we'll start talking a little bit about your business. So Howie Zales is an Emmy award-winning camera operator who's turned his passion for television broadcasting into several entrepreneurial endeavors, which we'll talk about a little bit today. But what I want to start out with, Howie, is who or what are you known for, right? What's your business like now? Who do you serve? What do you do for them?
Yeah, I used to be a camera operator. I worked with NBC Sports and the World Wrestling Entertainment for over 20 years, close to 25 years. I've shot Super Bowls, Olympics, Kentucky Derbies, WrestleManias.
So
You
we've
name
seen
it,
your work probably.
yeah, absolutely. You name it, I've shot it. I've had the good fortune to see the world and cover some of the biggest and best sporting events and entertainment events. So it's been a great career. But simultaneous to that, I always had a business on the side, HJZ Productions, where we staff sports and entertainment shows with the proper crew that our clients need. Anything from camera people to audio people to replay people, anyone that it takes to do a TV show.
Awesome. And so that's what you do now, is you run that production house. Is that full time?
Full time, yep. I stopped traveling, doing the camera work, 2 back surgeries and a pandemic. I'm good.
Has it helped at all that cameras have gotten smaller and lighter over the years, right? Because now they're little things.
No, actually, the broadcast handheld cameras are just as heavy as they were, 10, 15 years ago, because the cameras are high def. So that means that the lenses have to be high def, and the lenses are heavier. There's more glass in the lenses than there was previous. So the back of the camera has to be just as heavy to balance it out. Otherwise you'd be like that.
You tip forward. Yeah. Yeah. So the shrinking technology has not impacted, it's just made it higher quality, but not any smaller size.
Exactly.
That's funny. Yeah, I was just like, I've been blown away by how small some of these things have gotten over the last couple of years for the quality, but like that really impacts us as the consumers, that like we're just getting a lot more quality in a much smaller package. But I can see for the professionals, they're just expanding the definition and the quality without really changing the size of the gear you're using.
Right.
That's cool. So what I want to talk about then is how you got into the camera business in the first place, right? We talk on this show about your origin story. Every good comic book hero has an origin story. Something that made you into the hero you are. We want to know what that was. Were you born a hero? Were you bit by a radioactive spider that made you pick up a camera and become a cameraman? Or did you start in a job, right, and eventually become an entrepreneur later on? Essentially, where'd you come from?
Yeah, it's a few good stories. I was growing up, I played baseball and a few other sports, but I wanted to play professional baseball, and I knew I needed a backup, right? So just in case. And spoiler alert, I did not play professional baseball. Um, but I needed an elective to fill my last course or class schedule in 11th grade. And I saw this elective. It said TV production, and the description was a trip to NBC studios, a tour of
Nice.
Rockefeller Center and NBC studios, and to watch a show being taped. I'm like, how bad can that be? Right. And
Yeah,
then,
I would have said yes to that.
right. And I fell in love with it immediately. And I knew like it was destiny from there. I knew I had to combine my love of baseball and sports and my new love and passion of television together. And kind of looking back, I grew up always going to Knicks games, Ranger games, Yankee games, and we'd always sit near the camera operators. I always find myself watching what they were doing and talking to my parents. We had a family member that used to be a photographer for the New York Times, so it was kind of a bit in the blood, so to speak.
Yeah, absolutely. And so you started on high school being like, hey, I'm going to take this class. How does that translate into you run a production house of your own?
Yeah, so I went to college I only went to schools that had television production programs, and I fell in love. I picked the perfect school for me, and I fell in love with doing sports, and I made my way into it. First, I took a job shooting news, and I got the phone number of ESPN and called and said, "Hey, I'm here. I'm ready to shoot sports." And the woman on the other end, Donna, said, "Well, what's your experience?" I said, "Well, I shoot news." And she said, "Call me in 5 years when you have some more experience." So I literally put it in my calendar for 5 years down the road. And I had a ton of experience at that time. I called her back and I said, I spoke to you 5 years ago on this day. And I told her the whole story, and she laughed and couldn't believe that I was calling her back with all
Five
the
years
experience
later.
that I had gained. Yeah.
That's awesome. And did she hire you then?
Yeah. She gave me a few days of work.
Nice. So then you got into the sports stuff, and then you
Yeah.
did the sports stuff for a number of years, and then you said you started your side business, which is what is it,
Yeah.
HJZ Productions. So
Yep.
how did that come about?
Yeah, a friend of mine who I went from, I think, elementary school all the way through college was working at MSNBC. And if you remember Imus in the Morning, he used to do his radio show from MSNBC. And once in a while, they would take the show on the road. At this time, they were doing it at a casino just outside New York City in Connecticut. And he called and said, "Hey, Howie, are you available to do camera on this day? We're doing the Imus show." I said, "Yeah, sure." He said, "Do you have any friends? I need some camera people, audio people." I said, "Yeah, absolutely." He goes, "Can you do me a favor? Can you get who's available, hire them, send me one invoice, and pay them for me? It'll make my life so much easier." And I'm like, "Done deal." And I'm like, "There's got to be a business in that." And
Yeah.
so I started my company then, and we slowly made our way into the industry. And we've provided crews for Super Bowls, wrestling events.
And so you're like a one-stop shop kind of place for like,
Yep.
hey, we need to have something filmed for TV. They can just hire you, and then you guys just do everything.
Yeah, for example, we have a Showtime boxing event this weekend. Showtime calls us, says we need 5 camera people, 5 audio people, some replay people, some utilities. We hire them, we tell them when to show up based on what the client tells us. We send one invoice and then we payroll everybody.
That's awesome. So I'm just curious because I've never been in that space before. You provide all the cameras, all the people, all the stuff that happens. Who provides the connection to the actual television, like so that the viewers can see it?
Yeah, so in most cases, we provide just the crew. The client is providing the TV truck and the equipment. Some cases, we'll go out and get the TV truck and the
Is that
equipment.
what that's called? Is a TV truck?
Yeah, it's basically a TV studio on wheels. Everything you need to produce a TV show in a control room is on in a 53-foot truck. It shows up usually. It takes two mobile units to make up one facility, and each truck is probably worth around $20 million.
Damn.
Yeah.
You don't want to run into those on the road.
No,
So here's my curiosity. You got
sure.
those two trucks and whatnot. Is it the same requirement for pre-recorded content versus content that's being broadcast live?
It depends a lot. If you do like a concert, right? A lot of concerts are done pre-recorded. So yeah, we would use the same TV truck, and instead of rolling the tape room, instead of using it for replays, would just record everything, and then it would be edited after the fact. If it was a live scenario, like a sporting event, um, the replay room would be used for replays and recording.
Nice. So then it just goes directly right out of the
Yeah,
stuff. Okay.
it hooks
So
up via fiber or satellite to the network that it's airing on.
yeah, to the broadcaster. So here's my question, and this is just something I've always been curious about. I don't know if you know the answer to this or not, and I don't even know if it's relevant to this conversation, but I've always wondered, when you're watching a live sport event like the Super Bowl, for instance, and they're doing the replays or even doing it live, and you'll see like the lines that are on the
Yeah.
graphs or the stuff on there, like they show up under the characters, like the actual people. They look like they show up on the grass, and I've always wondered how they do that. How do they do that live, particularly, like to show up animations that aren't they're not in the camera shot, like those lines don't exist, someone else is doing that. How does that happen?
There's a special device in football. There's three cameras up top, the left
Mhm.
20, the 50, and the right 20. There's a special device attached to those three cameras, and it's all software driven. And it's like a third party software that is integrated, and the cameras can be taken with the first and 10 line, that's what we call it, or without the first and 10 lines in it.
So you can decide whether or not that information is going to
Yeah.
show up on the feed. So
Yeah.
it's always like blown my mind. I'm like, I know that that's digital information being overlaid on top of what we're seeing, but I just don't know how it's happening. Always been a curiosity of mine.
Usually it's called camera 1, 2, and 3 with the 50 with the first and 10 lines in, and then 51, 52, 53 without it.
That's interesting. So, and does same kind of thing depending on the sport? Like they have the same kind of technology that just sort of like puts whatever the overlays are.
If you're watching baseball, like the pitcher catcher, there's
Mhm.
like an advertisement behind the catcher on the wall usually. That's like
Yeah.
that's a green screen, and that only appears on that center field camera.
That's interesting.
Any
Do you
other
guys
any
control
other
that, or does someone else in the
Yeah, the
team
TV
control it?
controls it. TV controls it.
So that's not your team then.
No.
That's interesting. Yeah, that's really cool. I always wondered how that was done. So thank you for that. I know that's not particularly relevant to your business, but I've always just been curious how that worked. So I want to talk a little bit about your superpowers as someone who runs a television production business. And, every iconic hero has their superpower, whether that's, a fancy flying suit made by their genius intellect or the ability to call down thunder from the sky. In the real world, heroes have what I call a zone of genius, which is either a skill you were born with or a skill you developed over the course of time that really helps you to help your clients come out on top, right? To slay their villains, so to speak. And the way I like to frame it is you've probably got a set of skills that you've developed over the course of your life that have, and if you look at them all, they all have like a common thread, right? Something that ties them all together. And that common thread between your skill sets is probably where your superpower is. And so I'm curious, what do you think in, HJZ Productions, what your superpower is there?
Yeah. Surrounding, HJZ, I guess overall, because I have my other business as well, is I have one person that manages each business. that is in charge of the business, and I kind of oversee everything. And then, my superpower, I guess, for both businesses would be just always surrounding myself with people that are smarter than I am. Because if I'm the smartest person in the room, then we have a big problem.
Yeah, I was just having that discussion with my son the other day about how entrepreneurs like one of the superpowers that entrepreneurs share is the ability to create time. And the way we create time is by empowering other people to get work done, right? And
Right.
because like if we tried to do it all ourselves, we couldn't do it, but we can empower a whole team of people to accomplish things that we couldn't accomplish on our own. And it's a type of creation that's very unique to entrepreneurs. And he responded with a story that is pretty common, and like he's been reading the Rich Dad Poor Dad books about Henry Ford, and they're asking him a question about math or something like that, and he's like, he can pick up the phone and get the answer. And so he calls like one of his mathematicians and gets the answer for it. And he's like, because I don't need to be the smartest person. I just need to have access to the smart people.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. It's
And knowing
definitely,
knowing who those people are, knowing who to call or who to contact for whatever the situation is you know 90% of the battle.
yeah. Yeah. It's just knowing how to, one of my entrepreneurial friends refers it to as being the master facilitator.
Right.
That like your job
Exactly.
as the head of the business is really to just facilitate the creation of the teams, and the people that are going to be able to handle the resources.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Cool. So the flip side then, right? So if your superpower is being the master facilitator and being able to surround yourself with those people, the flip side of your superpower is generally your fatal flaw, right? Just like every Superman has his kryptonite, or Wonder Woman who can't remove her bracelets of victory without going mad, probably had a flaw that's held you back in growing your business. For me, it's a
Yeah.
couple of things. I struggled with perfectionism for a long time, kept me from shipping product. Also struggled with not having good boundaries with my clients, so I'd let them walk all over me and not have good, time, not have a good relationship with time, essentially. But I think more important than what the flaw is how have you worked to overcome it, so that people who are listening might learn a little bit from your experience there.
Two flaws. Um, One is that I'm not a good writer, and I should have pushed myself when I was younger to get better. Right? If you're not good at something, the only way to improve is to put yourself out there in an uncomfortable situation to help yourself improve. Therefore, I do not send an important email out without Jen, my wife and business partner, checking it first, because I
Yeah.
don't trust I don't trust myself that I don't want to make us look bad. So I don't send an important email out. So I feel crippled sometimes because of my writing skills, and maybe we thought a little dyslexia. So we're very careful about that. But that is something that is like a kryptonite to me. It's debilitating
Yeah.
sometimes because I don't want to embarrass us. And the other thing is knowing when family time, right? Turning the phone upside down and not
Yeah.
having a client interrupt, or paying attention to my family. The business can wait.
Yeah. And just knowing how to prioritize that stuff and when to prioritize it. And
Yeah.
that's a tough thing. It's one of the things that like I try to do a really good job of keeping business stuff on the calendar. And if it's not in the calendar, that it's like it doesn't get attention until it's on the calendar. That's how I try to deal with that one.
Yeah. And since my wife and I work together, and we own our business together, if something pops into my brain at 9:30 at night when we're lying in bed, it's very difficult not to. It was very difficult at first not to just say, "Hey, Jenny, how about this?" So now I just write it down in my notes for tomorrow morning.
You can come back to it when it's business time,
Yeah. Yeah.
not when it's business time, if you know what I mean.
Right. Exactly.
uh, so the other one that you mentioned was I was going to say I lost my train of thought there. It'll come back to me eventually. Your first flaw, remind me what you said the first one was the writing, the communication, right?
Yes.
Yeah. And I've been convinced for a long time that writing and communication ability is like it's a power multiplier for people.
Hmm.
That if you can communicate well, it almost like enhances everything else you do. So I could see how that would be a really, like you mentioned, debilitating, right? A debilitating flaw. And so
Yeah.
I'm curious, like, what are some of the strategies that you put in place, other than, like, I mean, you mentioned like running things by your wife, but what are some of your other strategies that you use to sort of overcome that?
Yeah, no, great question. I'll compose this is like for important stuff. So I'll compose an email, I'll put it off to the side, and then come back to it 3 or 4 or 5 minutes later, just to make sure it says what I think it says, because sometimes I do that because I'm doing, my head is ahead of what I'm doing. My brain is ahead of what I'm doing. I think it says something, but really on the computer, that's not what it says, or it's missing a word or a piece of punctuation. So I put it off to the side and I come back to it.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
that's one way I've learned to overcome overcome that. And I just stay in my zone, right? I don't use big words, or if I don't know, I look it up. If accepting or accepting, right? Which way, so I look it up.
Yeah, absolutely. I know I do some of the same things. I have I don't know that it's dyslexia exactly, but like my right hand or left hand is faster at typing than my right hand. Or one of the ways. So one of my hands is faster than the other one. So I'll like type
Right.
things out. And then a lot of words where like where one of the letters comes from this hand and the other one comes from this hand, they'll be mixed up. So I'll have words that are like they're all mixed up. So I'll have to like write
Right.
something and then go back and look at it afterwards just to make sure that I actually typed it properly. Cause
I totally get it.
type things wrong and you're like, you said if you send them off immediately, you like look at it and be like, oh man, I just look dumb.
Yeah, yeah. I never send anything off without walking away or putting off to the side for a time.
Yeah, I know one of the tools I've been making use of more recently is Grammarly,
Mhm.
because Grammarly like looks at your stuff and it'll, you know, highlight like grammar issues or spelling issues for you, so you can make sure that things are going there. That's been really useful for me.
Yeah, I've also used like if for important emails, I'll create it in Google Docs or
Mhm.
Word, and then make sure it's good, and then copy and paste it into an email.
Yeah, yeah, something where you can't accidentally hit send before it's ready to go.
Yeah,
It doesn't. There's nowhere to go in Google Docs. It's just going to stay there until you do something with it. That's a good idea.
exactly.
Cool. So I want to talk then a little bit about your common enemy, and this will be an interesting sort of discussion because I don't think we've ever talked to someone who does TV production about this. But every superhero has an arch nemesis, right? It's a thing that they have to fight against in their world, and in the world of business, it takes on a lot of forms. But we'd like to put it in the context of your clients, the people who hire you, and it's a mindset or a flaw that you have to sort of fight to overcome in order to get them the result that they hire you for. And so I'm curious, what is sort of that common enemy that you sort of constantly have to deal with in your business?
Yeah, in HJZ Productions, hiring business, there's one large company that does what I do on a very large scale nationwide. So they're our biggest competitor. And so it's up to me, since I'm the face of the business, to sell our services on why to use us and why we're different. Uh, so that's one thing. In our live stream business, Veridity Entertainment, again, I'm the face of the business, and I oversee all of our productions, and I sell to our clients why they would want to use a smaller business, and why the workflow we developed is superior to other companies out there.
Yeah. So that's it's an interesting sort of place to be in, especially when you have huge competitors. And there's probably this is just my guess. There's probably not a lot of people in your business. It's like there's the 800-pound gorilla, and then there's probably you guys and a few others. That is that
Yeah,
what I'm
yeah,
understanding?
yes.
So you sort of regularly have that conversation about like why choose the smaller one when there's this huge looming 800-pound gorilla that everyone knows about it and could hire.
Right, right.
So
And
what are some of your guys' reasons for clients to hire you versus hiring the big guys?
one, I'm a former freelancer, former camera operator, so I know the industry. I I know the people that I call and hire. They're vetted. I'm not just looking through a list on a computer and sending out blanket emails. Um, we're a small company. If you call, if you have a question about invoicing or payroll, you call Lori. If you have a question about the crew, you call me. If it's a HR person, you call an HR question, you call Jen, and that's it. So we pride on
So
ourselves
like
that
it's
we're a
just
small
personal.
business.
Yeah,
Personal
it's
touch.
personal experience, personal
Yeah.
touch, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So do you find that matters to your clients as much? If they're also small or large, or like if you're dealing with a big company, do they care as much?
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, it's interesting because sometimes I know like when you're dealing with really big companies, it's just a checkbox. They're like this team is hired, yes or no, kind of thing.
Right. Yeah,
Uh,
so it also depends on who you're dealing with, what company you're dealing with. But yeah, I find that a lot of people like the smaller, um, our small business. They like that when it's a question that they need answered, that I answer relatively quickly. Not that I drop everything and I'm checking my email, 24/7, but I make the clients a priority, especially during business hours.
Yeah, absolutely. So have you over the course of doing this discovered or like picked out a smaller niche that sort of you guys are standouts for, that gives you like an advantage over the big companies?
Yeah, we in the live stream business, we deal with a lot of corporate events, concerts, talk shows, and we know that our workflow is second to none. And what we do, we pride ourselves on providing our clients, super high end uh outcomes to their events. And we go the extra step to make sure that they get what they pay for.
Yeah, yeah. Which I assume for like a lot of those live stream events, I know because we work with in our business, we work with people who put on live events sometimes because I'm sort of like on the marketing side. We do like, hey, we've got a course or a something or whatever, and they're gonna like deliver it live.
Right.
And so they would hire someone like you. And like when they do a live stage event, it's like what they're looking for is they want it to both like at the event, they want to have the screens that look really good for the people that are there, but they also want to have like top-notch recordings that they can then sell later.
Right.
And so you guys probably have all of the processes worked out for like, hey, here's what it's going to look like in the live event. Here's what the assets you're going to get when you're done.
Yep. Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah, yeah. Do you guys do the editing of the events as well, so they end up with like polished product, or do you guys just do the actual like raw recording?
Yeah, we do have the capability to do the editing. I don't specifically do the editing
Yeah,
myself, but yeah, my team.
your team does all the editing. That's cool.
Yep.
Because I know that's like it's a regular thing that happens like in the coaching space is the coaches will come in and they'll do like a live event and teach and train us stuff like that, and like it's important to have it look good at the event, but that's only going to be for the 100 or 200 people that are there, but
Right.
they're going to sell the recordings to thousands and thousands of people over the next couple of years.
And the content that they walk away with is,
Yeah,
invaluable.
yeah, is like that's their big win. So they have to
Right.
have a top-notch crew to make sure that that content is worth putting together and worth selling and worth offering to their audience.
Yep.
That's cool. So I'm going to talk then a little bit about your driving force, which is the flip side of your common enemy. So, if your common enemy is what you have to fight against, the driving force is what you fight for. Just like, Spider-Man fights to save New York, or Batman fights to save Gotham, or Google fights to index and categorize all the world's information. What is it that you fight for with your business, your mission, so to speak?
Yeah, I love what I do. I love the television business. I love creating. I first started out as a camera operator, so I love being able to, uh, you know, you have to have a little bit of an ego to do this. So I loved being able to get a replay and fight to have the best shot and have my shot be used the most. So whatever I needed to do to get the best shot, whether take the camera off my shoulder, shoot from my knee, or put the camera above my head, I would do whatever it would take because I loved what I do. I loved seeing my stuff on the air, and I loved having my family, my kids see, me at the Super Bowl with my shots on the air. And with our businesses now, I love being able to walk away from helping produce a live event or a live stream and having the clients say, we're so glad we used you guys because that was the best event we ever did. Or, that's what drives us.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm curious when it comes to like the way that the market has shifted for television over the last 10 years. A lot of it has shifted from, cable packages to, Netflix, Hulu, HBO Max, and Apple TV and stuff like that. Do you find that that has changed your clientele at all, or that it's changed the business much in terms of like what you guys are actually delivering?
No, because we deal mainly in broadcast sports and entertainment. So sporting events are still being broadcast at the regional level, meaning the home
Yeah, the
networks
home
and
area. Yeah.
yep. So not yet. But what we are finding through the use of live streaming events like high school sports or low level division college sports D2 and 3, or lower level sports like the some new football leagues, and some track and field events that maybe never would have seen the light of day are now being live streamed. So now
Yeah.
that's an
Are they
avenue
being live streamed on like YouTube and stuff like that?
YouTube, or a content delivery network that's associated with the website of the company, whoever's producing it, um, or just even if it's the high school's website or a local Facebook page for a high school. So now we've created jobs for people in the television space, or the television slash live stream space. We've given an avenue for these athletes that maybe would never have been seen to be seen. Maybe they have a chance now to go even further.
Yeah, absolutely. I know we just watched a live stream the other day of my niece's graduation from their high school.
Yeah,
And I was like, I know 5 years ago, if she'd graduated 5 years ago, we wouldn't have gotten to see it. But
right.
today we did, or like I say today, but it was like 5 days ago, right? We got to watch her graduation. It wasn't well produced, which makes me think that there's probably like there is a what would you call it? There's a range in the marketplace for doing that kind of
Yes.
stuff, and you guys there's probably like the super cheap version of doing it, which is what it looked like they had, versus like
Yeah.
bringing in a professional team like your
Yeah.
guys to actually make it look like a production, I would imagine.
We're on the high end of that. We definitely produce events for high end Fortune 500 companies, whether it's completely virtual, hybrid. We do talk shows with athletes. We've worked with Charles Barkley, Magic Johnson, Tiger Woods, just to name a few.
Yeah, absolutely. And so I was just, because it just popped in my head when you said high school graduation. I was like, hey, we watched one of those, but it looked to me like the production was a guy with a tripod at the back that they just hooked up to a YouTube live stream, which is fine.
Yeah,
It worked.
it worked.
But yeah, I would imagine having someone who's got like a camera crew and knows how to set up, and you can actually make it look like a good production.
Right, right.
Requires some skill and knowledge about how to do that and where to put the cameras and how to make sure
Yep.
that like your audience isn't all walking in front of the camera and blocking the view from your live stream viewers.
Exactly.
So that's cool. Okay, well, I want to switch gears then and talk a little bit about your hero's tool belt. And this is just a practical portion for people who run businesses, right? Just like every superhero has a tool belt filled with gadgets like their batarangs or their magical hammers or web slingers, lasers, eyes, or whatever it is. Talk about the top 1 or 2 tools that you couldn't live without in your business to make it run. Could be anything from your notepad to your calendar to something you use for marketing, or the systems you use for product delivery, or in your case, service delivery. Something you think is essential to getting the job done today.
Yeah, I rely on systems and processes. I never want to make the same mistake twice. We make a mistake, we have a meeting, we've come up with a way to fix it, and we fix it and then move on, document it, send that document to everyone else. That way we have something, we know we have something to fall back on when situation arises again.
Yeah.
I live by my calendar, because if I don't have it in my calendar, I totally forget. And if I need to postpone it, I don't just let it pass. I actually move the item in the calendar. I have a very strict morning routine, which starts usually the night before with a few things that I want to get done before, that I want to get done early in the morning before other people in the house wake up. around like 5 o'clock. And then I work out for an hour. And by 9:30, I'm ready to start my day. And we have our first meeting, our first team meeting at 9:30 in the morning. And at like 9:45, whatever needs to happen for the day starts to happen.
Yeah, absolutely. I love the idea of having a good morning routine. Mine, like, for whatever reason, like my trigger is like getting my morning shower. If I don't get my morning shower in, my feels like my whole day doesn't go right. But the documentation and the system stuff is something that I've been spending a lot of time on in my business recently, and it's just realizing that like I when you like I started mapping out all of our processes that we had documented versus what we didn't have documented, and it became really clear to me. I was like, we don't have any good documented processes for like our lead generation or like our sales stuff or our HR. We have all of our documents on our service delivery, which is fine because that's how the money is made. But it just dawned on me that I was like, if we got hit by a bus tomorrow, like the only thing that would survive is the service delivery, because that's the only part that's really well documented. And I was like,
Right.
so it became really obvious. I was like, we need to get all this stuff documented in all these other places, so we have like, I don't know, it feels like you have to have if you don't have it documented, do you really have a business, or do you just have really good habits?
Right. No, you're right. Yeah, I watch out for buses.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's been a big focus of mine over the last couple of months, is figuring out, okay, where are the places that we need to improve our documentation, because that's really the only way you can grow and scale, right? Because back to the thing we talked about earlier, creating time and hiring people, you can't do that if all the information is locked up in your head.
Exactly.
Or someone on your team's head.
Right.
Cool. And just the other note on that, we're on like episode 210 or something here for this show.
Oh, wow.
And probably roughly 85-90% of people who come on and tell their story about an entrepreneur mention their calendar as being one of their most important tools, which I find interesting. Is that, I say regularly that, like, entrepreneurs live and die by their calendar. And I believe that before I started this show, but after I have interviewed so many people, it's interesting how consistent that particular thing is that like entrepreneurs, we just can't live without our calendar. And just curious, do you see the same kind of thing?
Yeah. And I always, and for me, I always set reminders up for each event. I have like a 15-minute, depending on what the event is do I set a reminder up for the day before, 15 minutes before? But I don't just put it in the calendar. I set reminders up because sometimes I could be on a call that was unexpected. And so I have to set that reminder up. And, I try to limit my time on the phone if it's not necessary or if it's not a client, because it's wasting my time or taking me away from something else.
I know, and one of the things I've started doing recently too is started adding, instead of just having like predefined events with like clients or team members or whatever we're doing, is also adding like tasks onto the calendar, where it's like, this is a thing that just I need to do, and booking a time with myself to do that task has been really helpful in making sure things get done. So instead of having like a task list, it's like they're appointments. I'm taking tasks and putting them onto my calendar as appointments.
Exactly.
It helps you get things done because you're like, hey, this is my hour that is dedicated to accomplishing this thing.
Yeah. And, to accomplish my morning routine, I don't book anything before 9:45, because from, my first meeting is at 9:30 every day with my team. And before that, working on my morning routine, working out, having my first meal, whatever, walking the dogs. It's all part of the routine that gets the day going, and nothing is booked
before that time. Yeah, absolutely. You got to protect your time, because that's the only thing you don't get back, right?
Right.
You can always find new clients, make more money, hire more team members. You cannot get your time back.
Exactly.
And now, a quick word from our show's sponsor. Hey there, fellow podcaster. Having a weekly audio and video show on all the major online networks that builds your brand, creates fame, and drives sales for your business doesn't have to be hard. I know it feels that way because you've tried managing your show internally and realize how resource intensive it can be. You felt the pain of pouring 8 to 10 hours of work into just getting 1 hour of content published and promoted all over the place. You see the drain on your resources, but you do it anyways because you know how powerful it is. Heck, you've probably even tried some of those automated solutions and ended up with stuff that makes your brand look cheesy and cheap. That's not helping grow your business. Don't give up though. The struggle ends now. Introducing Push Button Podcasts, a done-for-you service that will help you get your show out every single week without you lifting a finger after you've pushed that stop record button. We handle everything else: uploading, editing, transcribing, writing, research, graphics, publication, and promotion, all done by real humans who know, understand, and care about your brand almost as much as you do. Empowered by our own proprietary technology, our team will let you get back to doing what you love while we handle the rest. Check us out at pushbuttonpodcast.com/hero for 10% off the lifetime of your service with us, and see the power of having an audio and video podcast growing and driving micro celebrity status and business in your niche without you having to lift more than a finger to push that stop record button. Again, that's pushbuttonpodcast.com/hero. See you there. And now, back to the Hero Show.
So I want to shift gears then and talk a little bit about your own personal heroes, right? Every hero has their mentor, just like, Frodo had Gandalf, or Luke had Obi-Wan, or even Robert Kiyosaki had his rich dad, or Spider-Man. Spider-Man had his Uncle Ben. Who were some of your heroes? Were they real life mentors, peers who were a couple years ahead of you? Maybe, authors or something like that, or speakers? And how important were they to what you've accomplished so far in growing your couple of businesses?
Yeah, great question. My first, I've had several business mentors. The first one was in college. Chris Kelly was my college mentor, who kind of like really brought me into the television department at Plattsburgh State, where I went to college. So he was my first mentor, and he stayed up till 2, 3 in the morning with me sometimes, teaching me everything I needed to know. So he was like my first mentor. Then my internship, the person who I did my internship, who has become one of my closest friends, Paul Frederick, was a mentor. And then Ted Flander, who's a camera person, who kind of showed me the freelance ropes. And then some other, older camera operators within the NBC world that kind of showed me the ropes. Yeah.
So it's people that helped you get good at what you're doing, right? And
yeah,
we're willing
and
to
I
take
picked
you
their
under their wing and
brain.
help them.
I picked their brain, asked a lot of questions, made mistakes in front of them, and they kindly corrected me. And then I also, right before the pandemic, most recently hired a business coach who became a mentor, who kind of opened my field of view. I wasn't just a camera person. I was an entrepreneur who was a camera operator on the side. And my wife was the one that really helped me make that mindset change. She said, you're really an entrepreneur. You have these 2 businesses. Maybe it's time to focus on that. And so it was like,
yeah.
And I would be lying if I didn't say that Jenny, my wife, is not a mentor, because she helped me make that mindset change.
Yeah, absolutely. And you mentioned something that when you make a mistake as a camera operator, the other camera operators have helped you sort of like see those, which is that's a perspective shift, right? As someone who's been there, done that, they can help you shift your perspective on those things.
Mm-hmm.
Just out of curiosity though, what does a mistake look like as a camera operator? And from the perspective of, like, you guys are a production house, right? You're helping someone produce their live event or something like that. How do you guys, like, what's a mistake look like from the camera operator standpoint, and how do you guys sort of cover for that in the production?
Good question. So let's take the sports world, for example. If I'm sitting in the TV truck watching all 8 cameras, part of the responsibility, or 10 cameras, however many cameras are in there, part of the responsibility of the camera operator is to listen to what the announcers are saying in one ear, listen to the director in the other ear, and decide what he or she is going to shoot. Because ultimately, we're telling a story, right? We're telling the story of what's happening in the event. We're telling the story of what the announcers are talking about. So we want to cover that with pictures. And you also have to know what the other camera people are shooting, so you're not shooting the same thing and not all 10 cameras are shooting the same image. So you have to, one, come prepared, know who the players are, what their numbers are, and what the storylines are. And you have to have an idea of what the announcers are going to talk about and be listening to what the announcers are talking about. So, to answer your question, what does a mistake look like? You may never see the mistake that the camera operators are making because it's covered, but we know who's not doing what they're supposed to be doing, if that makes sense.
Yeah. So like you can see it on like whoever's doing the I don't know what you call it, but the one who's watching all the cameras is sort of
Yeah, the
making sure that's
director.
happening. So you're covering for that. So what does a mistake actually look like? Is it that they're filming the wrong thing, or they're not paying attention to what's going on, or
They're
is it
shooting.
like camera exposure settings, or like what kind of things are
No,
like?
it's not exposure settings because that's taken care of by somebody else. It's they're not shooting the right things. They're not paying attention to what the announcers are saying. Their framing is not good. If it should be, chest up, then they're head to toe. It's not creating movement in the shot. It's not. It's just standing there flat, shooting something, not moving off to the side and creating depth of field. It could be a number of different things. The viewer at home might never know, but the director and a lot of the TV crew would know. And that's what makes the difference between just an okay camera person and like a really standout camera person.
Yeah. So do you guys like are you hiring for that talent, or are you guys training that talent?
Both. HJZ Productions, we hire for the talent, but then I also have a course, the broadcast sports course, where we train new people that are coming that want to get into the business on how to get into the business and how to be successful in the business,
How to be a standout camera operator?
and work as other positions in the business. Yeah.
Absolutely. That's really cool. I didn't realize you guys do that as well. So I think that's a good place to sort of get to the end of our interview. But one of the last things we always cover is your guiding principles, right? And so one of the things that makes heroes heroic is that they live by code. For instance, Batman never kills his enemies; he only ever sends them to Arkham Asylum. So as we wrap up here, I'm going to talk about the top 1 or 2 principles that you use regularly in your life. Maybe something you wish you'd known when you first started out on your own hero's journey.
Yeah. I trust my gut. If I don't know what to do, gun to my head, I go with my gut decision. What my inner gut is telling me is the right decision, I go with it. Because I feel like it's never steered me wrong. I don't think long and hard. I almost know what the right decision is. And family first. There's no event, no nothing that's more important than being with my family.
Yeah, absolutely. I like the idea of trusting your gut. I try to do the same thing. Not always great at it, but I do try that. And I know on the family first thing, I actually a number of years ago, I was under the impression that your clients wouldn't respect you if you told them your family came first. But like I have since discovered that that's really what everyone wants in their own lives, is to put their family first. So I start out client relationships, I always let them know, I'm like, just so you're aware, my family will always come before you.
Right.
And it's never gotten me anything other than just like the utmost respect. People are like, yeah, I run my life the same way, and I wouldn't expect anything less from the people I work with, kind of thing. And I
Don't.
remember being afraid of that when I was a younger entrepreneur, but
Yeah,
really
me too.
understanding, hey, these are my priorities, and this is how it's going to go, and you will always be a second class citizen in my life. You will be after
Yeah.
my family.
In my industry, in the sports world, most sports, especially football, is on the weekends. So I've missed my fair share of family events, weddings, bar mitzvahs, you name it, birthdays. But ultimately, it comes down to being there when it really, really counts, and being there for my wife and kids when it really, really counts. And I don't want my kids to ever say, daddy missed this, or my wife to say you
Hmm.
missed that. Um, that's, to me, that's the most important thing, because you can have all the money and all the clients in the world, but if you don't have your family, what good is it?
It's no good at all. Well, that is a wrap on our interview, but I do finish every interview with a simple challenge. I call this the Heroes Challenge, and I do this to get access to stories that I might not otherwise find on my own, because not everyone's out doing the podcast rounds like you and I might do. So the question is simple. Do you have someone in your life or in your network that you think has a good entrepreneurial story? Who are they? First names are fine. And why do you think they should come share their story with us here on the Hero Show? First person that comes to mind for you.
Yeah, my business associate Jamie has a great story. Absolutely.
Yeah. Why do you think they should come share that story here?
He's got such an interesting business. His passion growing up was skiing, and he lived in New Jersey, New York City most of his life, and it's hard to you don't own a car in a lot of these places. And he started a tour business to take people from New York City to the ski mountains, and has developed a worldwide business running these winter tour events.
Well, that's cool. I didn't even
Yeah,
know that was a thing. That's
me, I had
interesting.
no idea either.
Yeah, that's cool. Well, we'll definitely we'll reach out afterwards to see if we can get an introduction. Maybe he'll come on and say hi.
Yeah,
We always get cool stories out of that. So thank you. And in comic books, there is always the crowd of people at the end who are cheering and clapping for the acts of heroism. So our analogous to that is, where can people find you if they want to hire someone for their live events? Where can they light up the bat signal, so to speak, and say, "Hey, Howie, we could really use your help"? And
yeah,
second to that is, who are the types of people that are the best to reach out and actually ask you to hire them?
yeah. People
The way
that
around,
are
them to ask you to hire. You know what I meant.
yeah, companies or small businesses, big or small, that are looking to do virtual or hybrid events, that need help with the technical production, the writing, the run of show. We handle from the beginning concept to the end of the show. We can handle anything. You can reach me on LinkedIn at Howard Zales, veridityentertainment.com, howiezales.com, and we're also on Instagram at Howie Zales.
Awesome. Thank you very much for that. We'll make sure we get the information into the show notes at the bottom of this show. And if you are, I said, I know a lot of our listeners are entrepreneurs, and they run small businesses. And I know that just for my audience, if you run any sort of event, the value for hiring someone like this is the end product, right? If you can get those recordings, those recordings can be such huge things for either your content marketing or for products that you can sell later. Having a well done recorded event is just such a huge benefit to your business. So
anyone listening to today's show, if they call us saying that they heard me on the show, we offer a 10% discount on their first production. Doesn't matter what style, hybrid, virtual, in person.
Awesome. And do you guys have like an event size that's sort of like a floor or a ceiling for like what you guys do?
No, we've had anywhere from no audience to streaming it globally to hundreds of people and streaming it globally. Everyone is different, but no.
Awesome. Cool. Well, thank you very much for coming on and sharing your story with us today, Howie. I really appreciate it. Is there any final words of wisdom you have for our audience before we hit this stop record button?
I had a blast. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks for being here.